Alright guys, so today we're going to be making small clay animals. This is a how-to sheet on doing it. What we're going to first do is we're going to roll our clay into a long oval shape. Then we're going to cut a plus sign for the legs. Pull out the legs, pull out the head, and we're going to start to make our animals. So when I do this, I don't really start with an animal in mind. This is an example of one of my animals. There's a lot of texture on the back. You can see its head, you can see a mouth, nose, eyes, ears, and all four of its feet. So what you're going to do when you get your clay is you're going to start to work it. So I'm just squeezing it with one hand, and I'm going to start to just pound it a little bit, trying to make it into that oval shape that I want to be in the end. So you don't want it to be that big, and I'm rolling it in my hands in some different directions. And I smooth as I go, because it's easier to fill in cracks now than it is when our animal has legs. So kind of pulling the clay, pushing it around. I see cracks here, so I'm going to push the clay. The more you work with clay, the more dried out it's going to get. So I recommend working with it as little as possible. I'm just going to fix these pieces. Alright, so I have pretty much an oval shape now. Again, you can fill in these cracks. If you need to add a little bit of water to your clay, because maybe you started to play with it too much, you can go ahead and do that. So the next step on our chart is we have to squeeze out a head shape. So if you divide this into thirds, you're going to make a third of it your head. So I'm going to squeeze, and I'm just kind of rotating my hand and squeezing as I go. You don't want to make your neck too skinny or it will break off. So, just like that. Then you decide which way you want it to be. Bottom of the head, and I think I want this to be the bottom because it's a little bit bigger, so I have more room for a mouth down there. So then I'm going to get a knife tool. And these are sharp, and if I see anyone playing with it, they're mine. So you're going to cut down, not all the way through, and you're going to make a plus sign. You're going to cut down. You notice I cut about halfway through my animal. And you just kind of pull them apart, just a little bit. And you're going to start to pinch. Stick your finger in between there and pinch out the legs. So you're going to do this on all four, really getting your fingers in there and pinching out your legs. Again, you don't want to make it too skinny or your animal will start to collapse or fall apart. Opening it up. If you need to, you can cut a little bit by the head. Just release it a little bit. So you can actually pinch out legs in front. Clay is really forgiving, so if you accidentally make a mistake, just kind of smush it back together and it should be okay. So I'm going to keep pinching and I'm pulling as I go. I'm smoothing. Pinching and pulling. And once in a while I want to see if my animal will stand. So I'm pinching. Smoothing it out. Okay. So my animal's standing. I can position my head however I want. And then I'm going to start to shape my head into the animal that it's finally going to be. So if I want to make ears, I'm going to pinch my head to make those ears. Because we're not going to be adding any clay onto this. I'm just going to pinch out from what we have. If it starts to crack like that, you can just add some water or smooth it out with your fingers. The more you play with your clay, the more it will crack. So play with your clay as little as possible. So I have my ears now. Then I'm going to take that knife tool again. I'm going to cut for a mouth. I'm just kind of cut halfway up. You can open up the mouth. And you can pinch and shape your mouth to whatever shapes you want. You should be making your animal into a four-legged animal. If you want a tail, you can pinch and make yourself have a tail. Again, smoothing out your cracks as you go. You can use any of the tools in your tool basket to make an eye. I like to just kind of squish it in there. And then squish it in on the other side. And then the nostrils of my animal. Then you could do ears, insides of the ears. So once you have your whole animal built like this, you're going to go through and you're going to really smooth what needs to be smoothed. Add some water if things are starting to crack, so you can take some water. Add just a little bit and smooth it out. If your clay is becoming a soupy mess and you added way too much water and it needs to dry a little bit, smooth out your cracks. And then you can take tools like this. And they have a little hook, it's a metal hook, and you can start to add texture. And this texture is going to represent the fur, or the hair, or the scales. And if you overlap your texture, it'll really start to look like a real animal. So this is how I do hair. If you're doing maybe like an elephant and you want to do like the cracks of their skin, you might take a needle tool and just kind of do some jagged lines and have them overlapping. So there's a lot of different things you can do with texture. But texture, you want to make sure that it looks like your animal actually feels like something. So if you look at my final product here, my example, you can see all of the texture and how the glaze, when you put it on, that's the clay paint basically, how it really sets in to those places where you have texture. Which the final thing that you need to do is to flip your animal over, and in the tummy of your animal, you're going to write your name. So you're going to use this needle tool, and either on one of the legs, or if you have enough room in the belly, you're going to write your name, and you're going to write your teacher's name. And for your teacher's name, you can just, whatever your teacher's first letter of their name is, so maybe it's C, and then 2, you can write on the paw. Make sure you can see it. Initials will not work here. You have to write your actual name. Alright? So, just like that. Make sure you have your name. Any other questions? Just let me know.